Thank you. I'd like everybody to start by putting their tray tables up and bringing their seats to an upright position. Our emergency exits are, we often get confused with American Airlines. So, I'm not actually in the American Airlines organization, but I am in the military. And I joined the New York Air National Guard in 1999. So you're right, we had different ages then. I was 5 when I joined. Today, I re-enlisted for 3 more years. Thanks. Thank you. So that happened. I thought it timed perfect, but this being in 1999, and it's a unique service. So the Air National Guard is unique for a few reasons. One of those reasons is we're part of a larger organization, part of the National Guard. You may have seen little stickers here and there. This organization includes both airmen and soldiers. Another interesting aspect about the National Guard is we have dual missions. We serve both the state and federal government, so we tag team. Another interesting fact is although we're military, a majority of our workforce is only part-time military, and they're full-time in their civilian careers. Some history about the National Guard that I found to be pretty interesting is we're the oldest military branch. Who thought of that? Who would have thought maybe the Army? The National Guard was founded 139 years before the United States Army. In case there's any Army veterans in here, I just wanted to let you know that little fact. Founded in 1636. So that's a pretty cool story for us. Now, in 1787, when the Constitution was signed, it actually recognized our little state militias, and it recognized the state's rights to protect themselves. So we're written into the Constitution, in case there's the Army veterans here. Today, we're at 107,000 airmen alone across 213 locations, over 54 states and territories. And since 1636, the National Guard has been involved in every single U.S. conflict, domestic operation, and natural disaster response. Some of you may recognize what this is probably portraying. As we've mentioned, this has been a difficult year, and if you've seen a military member this past year throughout COVID-19, they were most likely a guardsman. We were representing every state, we were distributing food, we were setting up testing facilities. Some of you may have seen us driving through our facilities, and we've also been distributing vaccines. So for us, it's been a very busy and trying year. But prior to all this, I was part-time too. This was my full-time gig. And I thought, as beautiful and wonderful as they are, that this is scarier than being in the military full-time. So I immediately put in my application. And I said, please, I think it's time for me to go back to work. She's wearing an eye patch. It's time. So I got the job. And today, I'm the superintendent of a public affairs office. And my job is to tell the story of the Air National Guard and how we support our missions. And I get to do that by hanging out of an airplane, which seems less scary than a 2- and 4-year-old. I do interviews, I take photos, and I get to make videos kind of like the one I'm going to show you now. So I'll tell you in advance, there's no audio because if you've been on social media, the worst thing are the ones that loop with audio and they're loud and you're trying to watch your phone with no one knowing. This has no audio. This video was edited, produced, everything having to do with it in the office right at Stewart Air National Guard Base, very close to here in Newburgh, New York, where our primary mission is to fly the C-17 Globemaster III. So what does that mean? This is an aircraft that is incredibly flexible, capable of tactical operations, aeromedical evacuations, and has a mission set that has a global reach since it can refuel in the air. Pretty cool. In case you were wondering what that giant aircraft was, I thought I should describe. This is what we do. And my job is to tell you about it, and it's to tell you how we support the mission, and it's to tell you the story of our airmen. Sometimes those stories aren't so glamorous. And I took the job in 2015 because I get to go to like art school every day. And sometimes, like I said, it's not exactly the best message you want to communicate. Since 2015, we've had a number of difficult situations to handle. First being 2 of our airmen who were killed in action in Afghanistan, and environmental contamination, 3 aviation mishaps, 1 right out of Newburgh, New York, 1 out of Long Island, 1 out of Puerto Rico, a naval ship mishap. We even had a murder. This wasn't in the job description when I applied for that job. These events account for more than 33 lives lost in 3 years. And these events required a much different method of communicating and expression. And so I had to find some tools. I had to learn how to do this, and apparently how to do this in many different situations. People want to know what you care about before they care what you know. So before they're even going to listen to you, they want to know that you care. That's a big thing. So in a stressful time, trust factors are critical in delivering effective messages. But in a non-stressful time, if we were just having a meeting, my experience and competence would be what gained your trust. You would analyze what I'm thinking, what I'm saying, and those would be your trust factors. Is she experienced? Is she competent? But when you're in a scary place, that changes. And within 9 to 30 seconds, you will determine whether I'm empathetic and compassionate enough to believe. So that's the key, empathy and compassion. And then if you find the right delivery model to make an effective message, then you're on your way. One formula I use is the age grade level minus 4. So who knew when you're communicating with the public, there's actually science behind it. The average American has around 10 years of education. You put a stressful situation on somebody, and their cognitive level drops by 4 years. This is good to know when you're angry. You might come down a couple levels, and it's okay. Take a breath and realize where you're at. This is all good news that you're learning this. But messages for this audience now have to be reworded for a 7th grade audience for them to be understood. Taking your message and breaking it into smaller pieces of information that are much easier for the human mind to digest, especially in a state of trauma or crisis, is how you retain that information, how you believe the speaker, how you keep listening and know how to move forward. There's actually tools online where you can upload your message, and it'll give you what's called a readability score. The readability score will evaluate your message and determine what grade level it's appropriate for. So a lot of you are writing fantastic papers. You upload that, and if it says senior level and you're in a tough time, you might need to edit that down. But it's an awareness that you didn't think of before. 2793. For any of you who do know me or have worked with me, I love this. This works in crisis, yes, but it works in sales. You see it every day in newspapers, advertising. You take a message, highlight 3 points, deliver it in under 9 seconds, and with less than 27 words, you're not going to forget it. You're not going to forget many parts of today's presentation because it's built kind of like this. Any more than 27 words, and it goes to short-term memory. And short-term memory, well, that's where your car keys go, your phone right before you leave. So keep it to 27 words or less. An example of this in response to maybe a fire. I would say something along the lines that the incident is under investigation and we will continue to provide updates. All the families have been notified. We're grateful no one was seriously injured. I numbered each of my points. I said it in less than 9 seconds. And I did it in 26 words. And if I asked any of you what I just said without this slide, you would remember vaguely what information I gave you. So those tools changed my communication style. These tools help me focus on concise, informative, short messages and the importance. They help me focus on facts, but remember, building in the empathy and compassion, because that's where the credibility lies. And although those tools are important, no 2 situations are the same. So the ability to adapt and know when you need to rely on those tools and when something is completely different and you need to make a change is the most important skill set that you can add to your communication strategies. That concept reminds me of a fire that happened in 1949. This was in Man Gulch, Montana, and 15 smoke jumpers, including their foreman Wagner Dodge, were dropped to try to contain an exploding forest fire. And they were known as smoke jumpers. Their plan was to fight the fire from the bottom of the ravine since the flames were to the right. However, the fire skipped over the ravine to the left side and surrounded the men. Dodge was heard telling his men to put down their heavy tools, and they could not. They were trained to do this. They were even seen leaning against the trees with the heavy packs and the flames coming, and they were not even thinking of taking off these tools. Dodge, on the other hand, knew they weren't going to escape this fire. So he lit a fire around himself. So put yourself in that situation for a moment. That's not my go-to. He lit a fire around himself while he was already surrounded with fire. When the men saw that, they kept running. They just thought he lost it. Dodge and 2 other men survived this fire. That confused the men, but Dodge was able to light the fire. He was able to burn the debris and brush around him before the flames from the forest fire got to him. By the time that they did, there was nothing left to burn, and it passed over him, saving his life. That's incredible. So I don't know if we have any volunteers or other firemen here, but next time you go to work, think about that concept. To set fire to yourself to escape. So what he did is known as an escape fire. Then they thought he was crazy. Today and now it's part of a fire science institute, that this is a known thing. Burning the debris leaves nothing for the forest flames to catch fire, and you end up making it through. Dodge shows us that even out of 15, he was able to handle crisis differently. We all handle crisis differently. We all handle things differently. We all have a lens that we look through. How many would have looked this way? So him being able to handle things a little bit differently and having that skill to adapt allowed him to see something that other men were blind to. They were blind to a way out. And just because he handled this well, or you might have something you handle well, maybe it's you handle crisis well in your professional lives. I guarantee that there are some blind spots in other areas. Dodge reminds us of the power of dropping heavy tools. And I like to say heavy life-saving tools because that's what they are, but in this case, they were not life-saving. You find the importance of maybe, even if surrounded by trouble and fire, maybe you can be in control of the fire around you. This is a concept I relate to on a very personal level. So as I was becoming more proficient in my career, and these events were occurring, and I was focusing on my work, I was working on my communication styles, I was avoiding my personal life, and it was unraveling quickly. And all these skills I shared with you did not help me avoid the flames of what I went through. I was avoiding home, and I was avoiding difficulties in my relationship, and it ended up in a really long and difficult divorce. My younger brother was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. He had 2 craniotomies to remove 2 tumors, leaving his left side paralyzed, and we just lost him this past August. And then on my 36th birthday, I realized I couldn't get any lower when I was in police custody for driving under the influence. But I handle crisis pretty well. But I have my blind spots. So these professional experiences and these personal lessons and the vulnerability to share my blind spots with you tonight has changed me as a person in unprecedented ways. I was forced to deal with this. It wasn't going away. I was forced to adapt and not be blind to the fires, some of which I set myself, some others set for me. But I had to deal with this, and I learned from it. You're going to have a time when it seems like the fire is closing in. And because we're doing 27 words or less, you're going to remember this talk. And I want you to remember these guys, the smoke jumpers from Man Gulch. They couldn't remember the one thing that would have saved their lives was setting the fire themselves or dropping their heavy tools. So we might need to see that and identify those times in our life when we need to set the fire and clear the debris and clutter that surrounds us before the real chaos catches. We need to take cover instead of fighting And we need to have the willingness to stand up when it's over and to remain empathetic and compassionate to others, no matter what the struggle is you endure. Because who better to manage crisis than someone who's gone through it themselves? Someone who knows where you're coming from, someone who knows how to adapt, someone who knows what place you're in. Empathy, compassion, and adaptability, I think, are the most important tools to communication. I'm going to venture to say to life. And I think that effective communication is an incredibly important skill set. But these tools are what make us human. Oh, every image I showed you tonight, highlighted 3 points, was said with less than 27 words and in under 9 seconds. Thank you.